receive lots of emails every week asking me about strings and recommending strings. So I thought what I'd do in this video is show you the selection I generally keep in stock and the ones that I'm asked for on a regular basis. And then just talk you through a few that I'm testing as well, so you get some very latest information on what I'm testing. So the most popular string I'm asked for at the moment is this fantastic string, which is Zyx Fire. This is a 69 gauge, and this is a 66 gauge, which is the string I use personally. I tend to prefer a slightly thinner gauge. I have a tension of around about 26-27 pounds, but I've used both of these together on strings for one player in particular, which is what I call hybrid stringing, where I use a thicker mains and a thinner cross string. I found these strings to be absolutely superb. This is a new set of strings by Ashaway. So we still have Ashaway Zyx, but the Zyx Fire has been incredibly good. So I use these so often that I buy them in reels. Also comes in another colour, which is orange, and so I have that in stock. Sometimes I'm asked for that as well. And then I carry a few spare single sets because it also comes, so there's a 69 Fire. So I have two sets of that just as spares. I've also going to be testing the Fire Power, which is a 66 gauge that I want to have a look at. I've always got 66, and then I've got it in the orange as well. And there is also a 62 gauge. I've not really tested that, but in general I tend to find that if you go too thin, then the strings are more susceptible to breaking. So if you want endurance, then a 66 gauge is probably the thinnest you will ever go, but more so you'll probably prefer something like a 68 to 70 gauge. If you go a lot bigger than that in terms of gauges, to 0.73 or 0.75, then whilst you've got plenty of endurance, you're probably going to find that there's not a lot of feel in the strings. But it's great for a beginner to have a thick gauge string, which is just for endurance and lets them play and get 6 months, 12 months out of a string. Moving on, the other strings I use an awful lot of, BG65, an old favourite, still popular around the world today, fantastic string. And the one that is similar to that is BG65 Ti, which again is another very popular string. Similar, the same gauges, just slightly different coatings on the string. Some prefer the 65 because of the coating is got a little bit more bite than the 65, which is a little bit smoother. Both great strings in their own right. And the string that many professionals use, and especially the Danish players, is the BG80. It seems to be massively popular in Europe and throughout the world, to be honest. So that's the yellow version, and I also have the white version. And I prefer to have white strings, but lots of players prefer coloured strings. That's personal preference. The market in the UK is still predominantly white strings, although more colours are coming in these days. So those two I use quite a lot. The other strings that I like, BG66 Force, which was relatively new from Yonex, and BG66 Ultimax. And I have found with Ultimax that I had a reel of red that wasn't too good and used to break very easily, but the white's not too bad. And I like the Force as well. It's a really bright string, and I find it's a little bit brighter than the Ultimax, but both of them are really good strings as well. So I'm not asked for this as often. Most of the time I'm asked for like a 69 gauge, and this is a 66 gauge. So I keep them in stock, but in smaller supply. Again, great strings. And when I go to the All Englands, I also just take a couple of sets of coloured BG80. with me, because you never know if a player has a preference for a certain colour. And so these are just backups in case the string breaks whilst it's on the frame and we haven't got time to go and chase the player to get some more string. So what we do is that we just string it up using our own stocks. So we have that in stock as well. Then we'll come on to the Victor strings. The Chinese Taipei players use VS800, which is a thicker gauge string. It can be quite a rough feeling string, so plenty of bite on it. I tend to find the green had a little bit more bite than the white, but again, nice string. The 850, which has come with a lot of the top of the range rackets, and the 880, which was another favourite of mine. The one downside that I've found with Victor strings is when you string them up, they are really bright, really fresh, and play fantastic, but they tend to have a little bit more tension loss. So it's better to string them a little bit tighter to allow for that tension loss. So great strings, I like these. Don't use them as often, but certainly for my demo rackets, I use these quite a lot. And then on to the latest Victor strings. This is the VS890 I'm going to be testing. This is a little bit harder string, so it's a little bit more like BG80, and so I'm going to be testing that very soon. And then hot off the press, which is on the Victor Global website, is the new strings, which is the VS680 and the VS780. So the 680, from what I can see, is a 65 gauge, so it's a little bit thinner than 66. So I'm looking forward to testing that and seeing what it plays like. And as I say, the VS780 is a 0.69, so it kind of falls between BG80 and BG65. But the 69 gauge is exactly what I have on my Ashaway Fire, so 69 Fire. So I'm looking forward to testing these in a kind of head-to-head version and see how they play. I tend to find the Victor strings a little bit oily on the outside, especially for stringing. They don't have that effect when you're playing, but it doesn't seem to hold its stencil ink as well as other strings do. It kind of wears a lot, the stencil wears off a little bit quicker. So that's it, just a very quick video of the kind of strings that I'm using frequently. I tend not to be asked for any of the Yonex Nanogy strings. I don't tend to buy many others. I have a couple of sort of budget strings, but aside from that, in the sort of performance level, these are the strings I'm using all the time. Hope this has been useful to you. Shall I just mention tensions before we go? Yeah, just mention tensions again. Again, this is a question I'm asked about an awful lot. For me, if you are a beginner, then you need your racket to do as much work as possible. So low tensions are better. There are always exceptions to every rule, of course. But for me, if you think of this as a string bed, the shuttle comes in, it is grabbed by the string and then repels it. So low tension, this effect, this trampolining effect, goes on a regular basis. As you go higher tension on the racket, what they call the sweet spot is reduced on the racket, because you don't hit off center as often, and because of that, it does allow you the opportunity to look for something completely different out the string, which is control. What you're looking for here is, as the shuttle impacts the string, it's your momentum that is driving that shuttle back, so there's more control on the response of the shuttle. So that's what it does. There is always a caution regarding high tension. It's great for the pros. However, if you're not a pro, if you're an intermediate player, most of the time, you having tensions like the pros is not going to help your game whatsoever. In fact, most of the time, it will be a hindrance. And if your technique isn't good, then you could be doing all sorts of damage to your shoulder and your elbow. On my website, there is a guide to tensions for plastic shuttles and for feather shuttles. Again, they're only guidelines. For me, If you're using plastic shuttles, then maybe 21, 22 pounds is max. With feather shuttles, that can go up to, you know, the 30 odd pounds mark. But you also got to think about the rackets and the racket manufacturers. They print recommended tensions on the rackets for a reason. If you exceed those tensions, then you invalidate the warranty on your frame. And if you've got a brand new racket and you take it out and it's a recommended tension is 24 and you've had 28 and the head breaks, then don't take it back to the shop and ask for a refund, because the chances are it's not going to happen for you. What will happen is the racket would have to be sent back to a manufacturer. If you cut the strings, then you've no chance. They want to know what it was strung at. So you can't try and hoodwink them by saying it was strung at a low tension when in fact it was strung at a higher tension. So be careful with tensions. You can do a lot more damage than you can good. It's always better if you slowly but surely raise your tensions, and then you can test to find whether the racket feels better for you or not. And they generally say test in maximum £2 differentials, and you may find that you get the ultimate string and tension combination. So I hope that helps. So be careful with tensions, choose your string wisely, and hope to see you again on another video.